I was working the front desk at a hospital in Copenhagen when an American tourist came in holding his arm at an odd angle. He'd fallen off his bike on one of those rental city bikes. His wrist was clearly broken, but he wasn't worried about the wrist. He was panicking about something else entirely. How much is this going to cost? He kept asking before I could even check him in. I need to know right now. Do you take my insurance? I have Blue Cross. Do you need my card? Should I just fly home? I told him to sit down and we'd take care of him. He refused to move until I gave him a price estimate. He pulled out his phone and started Googling flights back to Boston. With a broken wrist, he was genuinely calculating whether it was cheaper to sit on a plane for 8 hours in pain than to get treatment in Denmark. We took him back anyway, got him x-rayed, casted up, gave him pain medication. The whole thing took about 90 minutes. When the bill came, he stared at it like it was written in ancient hieroglyphics. It was 800 kroner. He asked me if that was the copay. I told him no, that's the entire bill. Around $120. Everything included. He didn't believe me. He actually asked to speak to a manager because he thought we were scamming him. Thought the real bill would come later to his hotel or something. My supervisor came out and confirmed the price. He just stood there in shock, holding his newly casted arm, asking, "But where's the rest of it?" Another time I was translating for a German doctor, when an American college student came in with what she thought was appendicitis. Turned out to be a bad stomach virus. Nothing serious. We kept her for observation for a few hours, gave her 4 fluids, ran some tests. She was crying the whole time, but not from pain. She was terrified about the bill. She kept saying, "My parents are going to kill me. We can't afford this." I should have just toughed it out. The bill was €0. Completely free for EU residents and for visitors. We charged maybe €50 for the paperwork. When the doctor told her she didn't understand, she asked, "What about the 4? What about the tests? What about the room?" He just shrugged and said, "What about them?" She literally didn't have a framework for understanding healthcare that didn't come with a billing department, get a payment plan. I've seen Americans refuse ambulances because they cost too much. I've watched them try to negotiate prices for emergency surgery like they're buying a used car. I've had them ask if they can pay in installments for a €200 visit. And every single time, the European medical staff looks at them like they've just discovered a new species of confusion. My cousin works at a pharmacy in Amsterdam. She told me about an American woman who came in with a prescription for insulin. Standard stuff, type 1 diabetes. She needed her monthly supply. My cousin rang it up and told her the price. €16. The woman asked her to repeat it. €16, my cousin said again. The woman started crying right there in the pharmacy. Just completely broke down. My cousin thought maybe she didn't have €16 on her or something. But no, the woman pulled out her wallet and showed her an American receipt from 2 months earlier. She'd paid $340 for the same amount of insulin back in Ohio. The exact same medication. She couldn't process the math. She kept asking, "How is this possible? How do you make money? Is this fake?" My cousin had to explain that the government negotiates medicine prices and that pharmacies aren't trying to maximize profit on life-saving drugs. The woman sat down on the floor of the pharmacy and called her husband. "Honey," she said, "I think we need to move to Europe." Heard another story from a nurse in Dublin. An American guy came into the emergency room with a deep cut on his hand. Needed stitches. The whole time they're stitching him up, he's asking about costs. How much per stitch? Is there a facility fee? What about the numbing medication? The nurse kept telling him to relax. They'd sort it out later. He couldn't relax. He was doing math in his head the entire time. When they finished, the bill was €100. He pulled out his phone and converted it to dollars. About $110? He started laughing. Not like a normal laugh, but like a man who just discovered he'd been lied to his whole life. "I paid $2,000 for stitches in Florida," he said. "They charged me $150 per stitch. This is 11 stitches. You're charging me $10 a stitch? What's the difference?" The nurse tried to explain the Irish healthcare system. He interrupted her. "No, I mean, what's the actual difference? Same needle, Same thread, same procedure. Why does it cost 200 times more in America? She didn't have a good answer for that. Nobody does. A friend of mine is a doctor in Barcelona. He treated an American tourist for a sprained ankle. X-ray, exam, wrapped it up, gave him crutches to borrow. The guy kept asking about his insurance and whether they were in network. My friend had no idea what a network meant. He had to Google it. When he understood the concept, he was genuinely shocked that American doctors only treat certain patients. Based on which company is paying, the bill was 45 euros. The American asked if that included the crutches. My friend said yes. The American asked when he needed to return them. My friend said whenever, just drop them off at any hospital or clinic when you're done. The guy couldn't believe he was being trusted with crutches worth maybe 30 euros without a deposit or tracking system. America. They charge you 500 bucks for crutches, and you have to return them within 2 weeks, or they bill you for the full amount, he explained. My friend just stared at him. But how do people who are injured afford that? The American shrugged. They don't. They hobble around, or they go into debt. There was a woman in Lisbon who needed an inhaler for her asthma. She'd run out while on vacation. Went to a pharmacy, got the prescription sorted with a local doctor, picked up the inhaler. Total cost, including the doctor visit, 22 euros. She posted about it online, and Americans started asking her which pharmacy it was so they could fly to Portugal specifically to stock up on inhalers. She wasn't joking. People were genuinely calculating whether a round-trip flight to Europe was cheaper than buying asthma medication in the United States. The Portuguese pharmacist told her that Americans come in all the time to buy medication in bulk. Insulin, inhalers, EpiPens, everything. They fill entire suitcases with medicine to bring home because even with the cost of international travel, it's still cheaper than American pharmacies. The pharmacist said it was the saddest entrepreneurial hustle she'd ever seen. I was in a hospital waiting room in Stockholm when I overheard an American couple talking to the billing department. Their kid had broken his collarbone playing at a park. Got treated, got a sling, got pain meds. The bill was 300 kronor, maybe 30 bucks. They kept asking where to send their insurance information. The billing person said they didn't need it. But we have insurance, the mom insisted. It should cover this. The Swedish administrator tried to explain that it didn't matter. The cost was the cost. Insurance wasn't part of the equation. The dad got frustrated. Look, we have really good insurance. We pay $800 a month for our family plan. We have a $2,000 deductible, but after that it's covered 80/20ths. This should qualify. The administrator just looked confused. You pay $800 every month and then you still have to pay $2,000 before they start covering things, and even then they only pay 80%. The parents nodded like this was completely normal. The administrator shook her head. And you think that's good insurance? They didn't have an answer for that. A paramedic in Paris told me about an American tourist who had a heart attack near the Eiffel Tower. Bystanders called an ambulance. The paramedics showed up, started treating him immediately, loaded him onto the stretcher. The guy was conscious enough to start panicking about the ambulance ride. I didn't call you, he kept saying. I didn't consent to this. I can't afford an ambulance. Paramedics thought he was delirious from the heart attack. They told him to stay calm. They were taking him to the hospital. He tried to get off the stretcher. With chest pains, he was literally trying to escape the ambulance because he was terrified of the bill. They got him to the hospital, stabilized him, kept him for 2 days. When he was recovering, the billing person came by. He'd already called his wife back in Texas to warn her about the incoming financial disaster. He was talking about selling their car to cover it. The bill came to about 1,200 euros for everything, ambulance included. He asked them to itemize it because he didn't believe that was the full amount. Where's the ambulance fee? He asked. They pointed to a line item. Bosch or euros. He made them confirm it 3 times. 80 euros for an ambulance. That's it? In America, he explained, ambulance rides cost anywhere from $1,500 to $6,000, depending on the distance and what they do during transport. The French billing person actually laughed because she thought he was exaggerating. He showed her his insurance statement from a previous ambulance ride in Dallas. $4,200 for a 12-minute trip. She stopped laughing and just looked sad. "How do poor people survive?" she asked. He said they don't call ambulances. They get Ubers, or they drive themselves. She couldn't wrap her head around someone having a medical emergency and thinking a booth cost of transportation instead off, not dying. My girlfriend is a dispatcher in Berlin. She got a call from a hotel where an American woman had fallen and hit her head. She was bleeding, possibly concussed. Definitely needed to go to the hospital. When the ambulance arrived, the woman refused to get in. She was sitting there with blood running down her face, saying, "I can't afford this. Just bring me bandages. I'll be fine," the paramedics insisted. She got aggressive. "You can't force me. I know my rights. I'm not getting in that ambulance." They eventually convinced her by explaining that the ambulance would cost about €50, that her hotel insurance might even cover it. She didn't believe them, but she was dizzy enough that she stopped arguing at the hospital. She needed 6 stitches and a CT scan to rule out serious damage. Everything was fine, just a bad cut. The total bill was around €400. She cried with relief. She'd budgeted in her head for at least $15,000 based on her American experience. When she realized it was less than a nice dinner for two, she actually hugged the nurse. There's a story that goes around among paramedics in London about an American exchange student who called 999, which is like 911 over there. She was having an allergic reaction. Her throat was closing up. She needed an EpiPen. The dispatcher sent an ambulance. When they arrived and injected her with epinephrine, she started panicking harder than before. "How much does that cost?" She wheezed out, barely able to breathe. "The EpiPen? How much?" The paramedic told her to stay calm and breathe. She grabbed his arm. "In America, EpiPens are $600. Do I owe you £600? He told her it was free, part of the emergency service, covered by the NHS. She didn't believe him until she was fully recovered and they showed her the paperwork. 0 cost. She'd literally been more afraid of medical debt than of dying from anaphylaxis. A hospital in Oslo had an American patient who needed an emergency appendectomy. Routine surgery, no complications. He was terrified the entire time leading up to it. Not about the surgery, but about the bill. He kept asking the surgeon if they could just give him antibiotics instead and see if it went away on its own. The surgeon explained that a burst appendix could kill him. He said, "I know, but how much does the surgery cost?" They did the surgery. Kept him for 3 days to recover. Gave him all his medications, all his meals, a private room. When he checked out, the bill was 2,400 kroner, around $240. He thought they'd made a mistake and only charged him for 1 day. They explained that was the full cost for everything. Surgery, hospital stay, medication, food, all of it. He sat down in the hallway and called his brother in Minnesota. "Dude, I just had my appendix out." Total cost? $240. His brother didn't believe him. He thought he was still loopy from anesthesia. "No, man, I'm serious. I have the receipt. Everything included." His brother asked him if Norway was accepting American refugees. The weirdest part of all. These stories is that Americans aren't even surprised by how cheap European healthcare is once they experience it. They're just devastated that they've been living in a system that charges them 100 times more for the same care. It's not confusion, it's grief. Like they've discovered their whole country has been running a scam, and they're the marks. A pharmacist in Brussels told me about an American expat who'd just moved there for work. She came in with a prescription for her kid's ADHD medication. Standard stuff, pretty common prescription. The pharmacist filled it and told her the price. €12 for a month's supply. The woman asked her to check again. Maybe she'd scanned the wrong medication. No mistake. €12. The woman started doing math on her phone. "I've been paying $220 a month for this in America. For 6 years. That's..." She trailed off. The pharmacist watched her realize she'd spent over $15,000 on medication that cost less than a Netflix subscription in Belgium. She asked if she could buy a year's supply right there. The pharmacist had to explain that you couldn't stockpile controlled medications like that. But yes, it would be €12 every single month. The woman posted about it in an American expat group online. Dozens of people responded with their own prescription price comparisons. One guy's blood pressure medication cost him $340 a month in Arizona. In Portugal, same medication, €8. A woman's thyroid prescription was $180 in Georgia. In Spain, €4. Every single person had the same reaction: rage followed by the realization that they couldn't go back. There was a family in Vienna who took their daughter to the dentist for a routine cleaning and checkup. Normal kid dental visit. Nothing special. No cavities, no issues. The dentist cleaned her teeth, did the fluoride treatment, gave her a new toothbrush. The parents asked for the bill. €40. They asked if that was the copay. The receptionist said no, that's the full price. The dad pulled out his insurance card anyway, trying to get them to bill his American dental insurance. The receptionist politely explained they didn't work with American insurance companies because the paperwork was too complicated and the reimbursement rates were inconsistent. She suggested he just pay the €40 and file for reimbursement himself if he wanted. He paid it, but he was visibly confused. Back in Michigan, the same cleaning cost them $280 after insurance. Before insurance, it was listed at $890, but that was apparently fake pricing that nobody actually paid. The receptionist asked him why they would make up fake prices. He said, "I don't know. That's just how dental offices work in America." She looked at him like he'd just described a hallucination. My dentist in Madrid told me about an American patient who needed a filling. Basic filling took 30 minutes. The dentist quoted him €60. The American asked what kind of filling material that was for. The dentist said, composite, tooth-colored, standard stuff. The American asked if he could get the cheaper metal filling instead. The dentist explained that they don't really use metal fillings anymore. Composite is the standard. The guy looked stressed. How much would the metal one cost if you did it? The dentist said probably €50, but he'd have to special order the material because nobody uses it. The American did the math and said, so for €10 more I get the better filling. The dentist confirmed. The American just sat there in the chair shaking his head. I paid $1,400 for a filling in Boston last year. They told me the white ones were cosmetic and not covered by insurance. After the filling was done, the American asked if he could get his other 3 cavities filled the same day. The dentist checked his schedule and said sure. They had time. Filled all 3. Total bill, €240 for 4 fillings, around $260. The American asked if he could pay in installments. The dentist looked confused. It's €240, not $2,400. The guy explained that in America. Dental offices automatically assume you need a payment plan for anything over $200, because nobody can afford it up front. There was an American woman in Copenhagen who needed root canal therapy. She was bracing herself for financial devastation. Root canals in the US can cost anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 depending on which tooth and how complicated it is. She told the Danish dentist to just pull the tooth instead, because she couldn't afford root canal therapy. The dentist asked her why she'd prefer to lose a tooth. She explained the cost. He quoted her 800 kroner for the root canal, about $120. She made him repeat it. He showed her the price list on the wall. Root canal therapy, 800 kroner. Tooth extraction, 600 kroner. She started laughing, that slightly unhinged laugh of someone who's just realized they've been getting scammed their entire adult life. You mean it's cheaper to save the tooth than to pull it? The dentist said yes, obviously. Why would it be the other way around? She didn't have a good answer. She got the root canal. It took 2 appointments. Both went smoothly. Total cost, $120. She posted about it online and Americans started asking her for the dentist's contact. Info like she'd discovered the fountain of youth. A guy in Rome needed his wisdom teeth removed. All 4, fully impacted, needed surgical extraction. In America, he'd been quoted $4,800 by an oral surgeon. He'd been saving up for 2 years. and still didn't have enough. He was in Italy for work, and one of them got infected. Had to deal with it immediately. The Italian oral surgeon did all 4 extractions in one appointment. Sedation, surgery, stitches, antibiotics, painkillers, follow-up appointment, everything included. The bill was €650. Around $700? The American asked if that was per tooth. No, total. For all 4, he asked if that included the anesthesia. Yes, the medication. Yes, the follow-up. Yes, everything. He paid it and then just sat in the recovery room trying to process the fact that emergency dental surgery in a foreign country cost 1/7 of what it would have cost him at home. He told the surgeon he'd wasted 2 years of his life saving money for a procedure. That should have cost $700. The surgeon said in America, healthcare is business. Here is healthcare. I was having coffee with a Swedish friend who works in hospital administration. She asked me why Americans don't just demand better healthcare if the European system clearly works and costs less. I tried to explain that most Americans don't know it's this different. They think the high costs are just the price of quality care. They've been told their whole lives that European healthcare is slow, outdated, and inferior.